It's Plant Appreciation Day. What a great time to celebrate the plants we see all around us. To appreciate a plant, it helps to understand them a little. We can learn a lot about plants from books. So where do plants live? Plants grow all around us. They can grow in the ground or on water. You can find them in snowy mountains, in hot deserts, and of course in parks and yards. Plants can be divided into flowering and non-flowering plants. They're also sorted by trees, shrubs, herbs, climbers, and creepers. Can you name some of these types of plants? An oak is actually a tree, and lemons are considered shrubs. Lavender is an herb, ivy is a climber, and watermelons are creepers. Just like a pumpkin, they creep and grow along the ground. Now, can you spy some of the plants that we talked about as you look around you? Plants are made up of different parts, and it helps explain how they grow. Have you ever looked at a sunflower and the different parts? And what about the Texas bluebonnet? Have you ever looked up close at these wildflowers? Did you know that after the flowers fade and the petals fall off, the bluebonnet plant forms pods with the seeds inside? When it gets very hot, they shrivel up and they pop like popcorn, spreading the wildflower seeds for the next year. Let's look at this diagram and learn more about the parts of a plant. When you look at a plant, you can see a stem and little buds shooting out from it. The buds open up into flowers or leaves. Underneath the ground are roots that hold the plant steady and help feed it to make it grow. Now you know the parts of a plant, but what do plants need to make them grow? Well, first we need seeds, of course. You can find them in the plants after they grow, and the process begins again. Do you see the seeds in these plants? There's a pea pod, a dandelion, and an acorn. Inside are the seeds. They definitely need soil unless they're water plants, and they need plenty of sunshine, but they also need water to help them grow. And they need insects. Butterflies and bees help in the pollination process. Deep inside a flower is pollen, and bees, birds, and butterflies help spread that pollen between flowers because many flowers need pollen to create new seeds. And worms, earthworms that is, help plants grow as well. They wiggle around in the dirt and they create paths to allow the rain to get through to the roots. They also eat waste, like garbage and other things in the soil that get in the way of helping plants grow. Plants make a great habitat for squirrels and other animals who also help to spread seeds. Now let's have a little fun with plants. Before you start planting, you can plan your garden. It's fun to make seed cards. And you can also do a little science experiment to see how seeds sprout. So gather up these supplies: a packet of seeds, an index card, kid safety scissors, clear tape, a couple of lima beans, a paper towel, and a clear plastic baggie. So here's an example of the seed chart that you can make for your garden and the beginning of a lima bean experiment. For the seed chart, just divide an index card and use samples from your garden of the seeds you're going to use. Then either draw pictures or use the covers of the seed packets or magazine pictures. On the back of the card, you can write some tips to help you grow that plant. For the lima bean experiment, just put some lima beans on a wet paper towel inside a plastic baggie. Hang it on a window in sunlight and see what happens. It's a fun way to understand what the roots and the sprouts look like on a plant. Now let's go on a virtual field trip and have a plant chat.
Today we're visiting with Master Gardner Mary Decker at the Montgomery County A&M AgriLife Extension Office located at 9020 Airport Road in Conroe, Texas. Mary, tell us about your title and about some of the things you do here.
Well, hi, my name is Mary, and I've been a Master Gardener since the year 2012, so this is my 9th year, and I am a Junior Master Gardening Coordinator, and I also am in the vegetable group here at the Extension, which we'll go see in a few minutes, and I help with irrigation. I teach children in schools all aspects of gardening, as well as teach to the public, whether it be in person or on a video or maybe at a garden club. And I just have a passion for teaching people how they can grow their own vegetables, how they can plant things for pollinators, and learn more about things like worms and how insects are important to our gardening, and just anything like that. It's just a lot of fun and I really enjoy it. What I'd like to do is take you on a little tour. How's that sound?
That sounds awesome.
Welcome to the Discovery Garden. Here in the Discovery Garden, we have Alice in Wonderland, hence the door that says Welcome to Wonderland. And this garden is here purposely for teaching and education purposes, mainly to children. And that's why it has this cute little thing. We have plants in here that are specifically planted as pollinator and nectar plants for butterflies. We have edible plants like strawberries and fruit trees, and we have herbs as well. And if you ever get to come up here, I hope that you can just go through this garden. Starts here, goes all the way down to the end, and down at the very end, not only is there a Humpty Dumpty, there are plants down there that have been used many years, and you would recognize some of the names of them, like cotton is where my t-shirt comes from. We have sugar cane, which is where sugar comes from. We have willow trees, which is where aspirin comes from, and a few other fun things that are down there. Now I would like to take you around the corner this direction to see what's that way. This is the butterfly garden here at Extension, and in this garden we have host plants and we have nectar plants. A host plant like this one right here is called pipevine, and pipevine is the host plant for the pipevine swallowtail butterfly, and she will only lay her eggs on pipevine. So if you wanted to have butterflies in your garden, it's important to have plants that the butterflies can lay their eggs on, and then it's important to have flowers like this beautiful cosmos here, so that the butterflies can get nectar from the flowers. And if you're interested in growing them or having monarch butterflies in your garden, which is the Texas state insect, you need milkweed. But now we are in the adaptive garden here at the Extension, and this is a newer area, and it is here for people that maybe don't want to do a lot of bending over, or they're limited in how much they can actually be an active gardener. We have peppers in here, there's eggplant right here. And one nice thing about this garden is not only do you not have to bend over, or you could pull up a wheelchair if you were in a wheelchair, but this garden is all watered by this rainwater harvesting tank. It's a little hard to see, but it's back there behind the sink. And the rainwater comes off the roof of this building, goes into that pipe, down into the tank, and the tank has a pipe underground that feeds water to all these beds. So we're conserving water here by using rainwater, and that's one of only maybe 12 rainwater harvesting tanks we have here at the Extension. It's a great way to conserve water, and the plants love it too. This is the vegetable area. We have vegetables that we grow year-round here at the Extension. This bed here are all tomatoes, and you see that there's this little, what looks like a wire, but that's actually baling twine, and the tomatoes are going to go up this vine all the way to the top of this string and give us some delicious tomatoes. So this is really prime growing season for tomatoes here in this part of Texas. We do trials here at the Extension, which is part of what Master Gardeners do. This is a trial of a tomato called Celebrity. So we plant these. They're getting 3 different types of food because plants need food just like you do. And we will weigh them when they make tomatoes, and we will see how many tomatoes we get. And we are going to test it against 2 other locations in Montgomery County to see how well they do. So this is a trial bed for tomatoes. And over here we have, this is a brand new bed as of last year. We are growing beans. You see these plants that are in here? These were what we call pole beans, and they are going to climb all the way up to this wire and just keep going all the way to the top, because that's what pole beans do. Beans can be pole beans and be climbers, or they can be bush beans, but these are pole beans. What we call our Lone Star bed. We had some Master Gardeners that painted these beautiful pictures on the beds. It's just gorgeous. So over here we have artichokes in this bed. And yes, you can grow artichokes here in Texas. We have rhubarb. We have lots of beautiful lettuce. It's purple. This is lettuce. We have strawberries in the middle. We have onions. We have Swiss chard. Lots of different kinds of lettuce. This lettuce has little freckles on it. It's called romaine freckles. And over here is asparagus. Isn't that beautiful? It takes a few years to grow asparagus, but you can do it here. These little babies are radishes here. Oh, pinto beans, carrots, onions, and squash. You can also grow pumpkins here. Something that would be good for you to plant from seed would be little pumpkins, cucumbers, and squash. You can grow yellow squash, you can grow zucchini squash, but they all like it warm. So these are good things to grow in mid-spring to early summer. Okay, you can grow squash all summer long. Okay, so those would be some things you could plant from seed in a pot at your house. If maybe you have a yard, you can put it in the yard. You just need to really have good soil. Having good soil is very important. This bed is going to be sunflowers and daylilies. Here's what this is. But you can actually eat the blooms of daylilies, and of course you can eat the seeds from a sunflower. We are in the orchard section of Extension right now, and I want to show you some plants that didn't fare too well from that freeze we had in February. So these trees that I'm standing next to are all citrus. Some may be lemon, some may be orange, some may be a tangerine. And if you notice, there are no leaves on these plants, because when we had that freeze back in February, they were not happy. Okay, this tree is probably dead because it's now April and there are no leaves on it. So what do you do with a tree like this? If you have a tree that is not leafing out by now, I would take my pruners and I would prune back a little bit at a time to see if I could find any wood on the tree that was green. If I find no green wood, the tree's dead. I'm sorry. This tree is probably dead. If you come over here and look at this tangerine tree, at first glance, it looks dead. But if you come in closer, you can see leaves emerging from the branches. This tree is not dead. It is an older tree, so most likely it had a good root structure and it survived the freeze. Okay, yes, it needs some pruning, but we were told to wait until April before doing any pruning on trees such as this, because a lot of them are coming back now. And we would hate to just cut it down and then find out later that, yeah, it probably was alive. This tree is alive. It's very likely this lemon tree next to me is dead. And if you have other plants at home that you're wondering about, maybe it's a shrub, April would be a good time to start pruning back if you've not seen anything leafing out. You will see behind me there are grapes that are leafing out, so you can tell those look really good. There are blackberries over to the far right at the end of those poles that are leafing out. So some plants did really well through the freeze. Others, like citrus, did not. Welcome to the herb garden here at Extension. This is a beautiful garden full of herbs. Herbs that you can cook with, herbs that you can smell. They smell so beautiful. We even have herbs that are host plants for butterflies as well. If you ever get to come out here, which I hope you do someday, you can take your fingers and just run them along an herb. This is oregano, and then smell it. Oh, it smells so good. We have sage used in cooking. We have sorrel. Some of these are just beautiful plants. Look at that sorrel with those red veins. Flowers, and all herbs are going to flower eventually. And you come around over here to this side, we have a neat little garden here that's called a keyhole garden. It's shaped like a key. The interesting thing about it is in the middle of it, we have a composting pile. So you can put your dead plant material, maybe veggies, leaves, grass, and it turns into compost, and the compost turns into organic matter, which feeds the plants. It's a really cool thing to have. We have our moon gate, which a Master Gardner made. I just think it's awesome. There's nothing holding that up but rocks.
Wow. Mary, what's a great way to get children involved in gardening at home? And is there a good starter plant that you recommend for a young gardener?
Those are great questions. I love gardening with children, and children love to be outdoors. And what is better to get their little hands in the soil and plant some seeds? So I have one recommendation here is planting zinnia seeds. If you have a garden, you can just sow them directly out into the soil and don't cover them up very much. You could just scrape a little of this mulch to the side, sprinkle the seeds on the ground, and water them lightly. Sometimes I just kind of scratch along the soil a little. Don't cover them up too much, and water them. Teaching children how to grow flowers is not only easy, but it shows them how you start from a little seed, and it makes a tiny little plant at first, which we call the first two little leaves a cotyledon, and then it grows into a beautiful flower. Now I know this is not a zinnia, but isn't that beautiful? And teaching the children what plants need to grow. When I teach children, I teach them that plants need light, they need soil, they need air. Most people don't realize that plants need air, but they do need air. They need nutrients, and they need sun. And it's important for them to realize, just like they need food, plants need food, so we have to give them food as well. But those are tips for getting them started. If you don't live somewhere where you have a garden outside, you can just start with a small pot. Just get any kind of pot. If you don't have a pot, you could just take an empty container, maybe from your yogurt or cottage cheese or butter tub, something, and recycle it. And just put some soil in there and plant some seeds. And that's a great way to get children involved in gardening. If you like growing food, and you can plant some of the things I mentioned earlier, like squash or cucumbers. Those are very easy to grow as well. And it's important to look on the back of your seed packet. Your seed packets tell you when to plant at what time. And so this one, you can plant anytime from March to May. So it's a perfect time to grow zinnias here. Welcome to Aquaponics. This is a really cool way to grow your plants. And it is in a building. It does not have to be in a building, but aquaponics is the process of growing plants and fish together in one system. You can see the plants here in these tables. The plants are being fed by water coming up under the table. So there's water up under here. And the fish, if they had survived the freeze, the fish would be in these tanks back here. And so you feed the fish food, and then the fish waste turns into nutrients for the plants, comes in through the water in the table, and then it goes back to the fish tank where the fish actually help to clean up the water, okay? And the plants help to filter nutrients out of the fish tank as well as help clean the water. So it's an all-in-one system. Now we do also incorporate one more interesting thing here in aquaponics to help our plants, and that's the red wigglers. This is a type of worm. You can see him moving around there. He's not the same type of worm you would find if you were digging in your yard. That we call a night crawler. These are smaller. They normally live along the forest floor, but earthworms are great to keep in a container. These red wigglers decompose food, and their waste turns into nutrients to help feed the plants in aquaponics. Yes, the fish do like them, but we don't feed the worms to the fish. We use the nutrients from the worm waste in aquaponics by helping the soil. So these plants here, some of these plants are actually in soil that's sitting on top of the water. You can see the little pot here. So this soil is full of worm compost. We call that vermicomposting. And the roots here are going down into the water in the table. That's how they get their water, and they also get nutrients from the fish waste as well. So you could have an aquaponic system in a greenhouse, or you could have one out in your yard. We did have a fatality of losing all our fish during that terrible freeze because this greenhouse was not heated, and the fish that we had, which were tilapia, cannot survive that low of a temperature. But you can see how healthy these plants are. We have basil, tomato, lettuce does really well in aquaponics. And if you don't have fish, you can grow it in water without fish, and that's called hydroponics. And you could feed them something like worm compost to feed your plants because they're full of nutrients and microorganisms. That's really cool.
Mary, what are some popular, easy to maintain plants to grow in the spring and summer in the Conroe-Montgomery area?
What a great question. Well, here in Montgomery County, we do have some very different weather conditions that you may not have in other parts of the country. So it's good to know that you need to get plants that do well here. Okay, we're in zone 8B. We're in a very humid climate most of the time, and it's very hot here in the summer, and it can be even in the spring. So some plants I would recommend would be something like this verbena. There are many types of verbena. This is a white one. It does come in pink and red. Another good plant would be roses. Now, I would specifically recommend either an earth kind rose or an old garden rose, like the ones that are here. See how healthy they are? They're just about to bloom. There are many varieties of earth kind or old garden roses that you can grow. You could grow lantana, does well here. But one thing you need to do probably before you buy those plants would be to get your soil tested. You need to know the pH of your soil. You need to know, is it mostly sandy? Does it have a lot of clay in it? And you can get the pH tested by coming up here to the extension to our phone room that's open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 except for 12 to 1 for lunch, and get your pH tested. And a Master Gardner could give you more information about getting your soil tested by sending it through Texas AgriLife to Texas A&M. Other plants I might recommend would probably be things like salvia. It's very hardy. Those are bluebonnets that are here mixed in with, there are salvias that are just that same color as those bluebonnets that are beautiful. Most salvias are deer resistant, so that's another plus if you have a lot of deer. What I would do also, if I was unsure what I wanted, I would go to a local nursery. I would speak to someone there and get what they would recommend for growing here. A good nursery worker would ask you questions about what type of sun do you have? Do you have any shade? Do you have a lot of sand? A lot of deer? There are lots of things to take into consideration. The Master Gardeners here do have the phone room that I mentioned earlier. You can call them, you can talk to them on the phone, or you can actually come in if you would like to visit them. Well, we are back where we started in the Discovery Garden. Here's Alice in our little wonderland, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about these huge tanks behind me. So these are rainwater harvesting tanks, and you can see there are 4 of them, and they're very large. They collect rainwater off of the roof. That water that's stored in the tanks not only waters all the gardens out here, it also is used to flush the toilets inside the building. So we're conserving water, we're feeding water to the plants that's healthier for them, and all around it's just a win-win situation. And here, like I said before, we have them all over our grounds, and it's a great way to conserve water and feed your plants at the same time.
Thank you so much, Mary, for letting us interview you and helping us learn more about the Montgomery County Master Gardner Association. Be sure to take a trip out here soon to visit Mary and her friends.
You're welcome. I enjoyed having you come visit us. Come back soon.
Here's how to find out more about Montgomery County Master Gardeners. And take a look at these fun books about gardening and plants at our library.
This is one of my very favorite books that has to do with gardening that I read to children. It tells a wonderful story about a bear and a rabbit and their gardening experience. I love to use this not only just to read the book, but also to teach children about different types of plants and how they grow in the garden. And I hope that maybe you can either check it out at your local library, or maybe someone will read it to you one day.
Have fun growing in your garden!